Welcome to Blind Man with a Backpack in conversation with Berkshire Vision's Employability Officer, Jenna Lynch.
We drive the graveyard train through the fire and rain. We drive the graveyard train when we come calling for you.
At the moment, there's a lot of noise about the benefit system being at breaking point and needing radical reform. The area getting the most of this attention is the ballooning cost of disability benefits and the need to get the country working again. Now, I, like many other disabled people across Britain, receive personal independent payments to support the extra costs that come with being registered blind. These costs can be anything from taxi fares to expensive assistive technology. Now, contrary to popular belief, PIP isn't means tested and it isn't an out-of-work benefit. Anyone with a disability can claim it as long as you meet the right criteria. Now, I kind of understand the need for reform, but there always ends up being this toxic undertone which leads to a demographic being demonised, and in this particular case, it's disabled people. Looking at this from a sight loss perspective, at least 60% of us of working age aren't in paid work. But that's not because we don't want to. There are so many barriers to employment when you can't see, such as inaccessible application processes and the perception that we simply are unable to do a job because of our sight. It really can be exhausting at times, which is why employment support services from sight loss charities are so important. My guest today is Jenna, who is the Employability Officer at Berkshire Vision, and we're going to dive into some of the challenges people with sight loss face when attempting to get back into work. We're hopefully going to quash some myths, and we've got some great advice for individuals and businesses alike. So let's get going and welcome Jenna.
Thank you, Chris. It's lovely to be here.
Thank you. So let's just kick it off. So let's start with, please, just why Berkshire Vision? So you're the employability officer at the charity. So what's your background? What's your draw to that role?
Well, Berkshire Vision, as you well know, helps in so many different ways across the board. The employability side of it, whenever I saw the job advertised, the interest in it came from a personal background of somebody close to me with both an optic glioma and also type 1 diabetes, and seeing how their future would come about once a visual impairment would start impacting them, and wanting to ensure that I was part of making sure that life was still livable, that it wasn't shut down, that to question all those myths that you talk about, you know, those perceptions that you can't do something if you're visually impaired. I had worked for a while in a school with the exams and seeing some of the kids there with different abilities, and even trying to make those things accessible in education, to then go on to the actual working life. You can see how the challenges just increase.
So how long have you been doing the role for now?
It will be 2 years on the 19th of June.
Wow, 2 years.
Well, 2 years, 19th of June. It is ingrained, the date.
That's for good reasons, yeah?
Good reasons.
Excellent, cool. And so you've been working with people from across the county and supporting them with that, with sort of either getting back into work or changing roles, or getting having the resources and the support. And just really at a high level, what kind of experiences have you seen or have you had from people sort of when they have been sort of going into the work recruitment marketplace, or just trying to get back into work as the site's changed?
A huge range from the individuals themselves. Very often, if they've just had a diagnosis and their life is changing, very often it's such a big step to be able to even think about work. So they might come in, dive in, but then want to take a little step back for a minute whilst they comes to terms and have that normal kind of grieving process and acceptance process of their life changing. And then they'll come back and take another step and this could be in education, getting to grips with the technology in a very new way. Upskilling in other ways, maybe if the job that they had done before, for example, if they were a truck driver, that's not something that you can make an adjustment for, but there's a lot of skills there that can be transferred over. Very often, along with the education, sometimes volunteering, building up that confidence in doing something new and different. And then you have the people that have done everything, absolutely everything. And then they start to apply for jobs. And then that's the next big barrier. That's the next big challenge. And also trying to advocate for themselves in what they can do and what adjustments they need. That all comes with experience and confidence. I'm sure been able to advocate for yourself in what you need and what you can and can't do, and how you get around things is something that you can only learn by doing it.
It's a really hard thing to do, and I know as my site had changed, and of course, I've been with the company that I've been with, and they've been amazingly supportive, which has been fantastic. But actually being able to take that step to them and go, I need some help. There's things that I just cannot do. I can't see my screen very well, or whatever that may be. It does get really hard to be, to put your hand up and say, I need some more help. I need some more support, whether that's technology or changes in working practice or anything like that at all. Yeah, that's difficult enough when you've been with a company for years. If you're just starting out, that's it is. It must be so hard. I mean, to be able to take that step forward and as you say, advocate for yourself and be able to have that confidence to put your hand up and go, I can do the job. I meet all of the qualifications, all of the experience criteria. I just need a little bit more support because I can't see or because I have restricted vision. And now what can Mr. Employer or Mrs. Employer do to be able to support me in doing that?
Yeah, completely. And even somebody that their employer has kept them on, the individual themselves isn't quite sure of things like access to work that can be used. The employer might not know either. So suddenly nobody knows what's the next steps. How can they get around this?
And that's the really interesting. So there's been I think you've sent me the full report actually, the big all parliamentary group report about this, and there's been a lot of investigation, a lot of working with employers around the support that is available, and so many companies just don't realise that there are government schemes available to support them in helping bring people, whether it's whatever that disability is, in helping them into the workplace.
Yeah, absolutely. And it seems alien to me because I live and breathe looking at access to work and the different things. So I'm like, how could you not know about this?
Yeah, no, it is. I think it's, as you say, it's just funny. And this is where I sort of struggle sometimes with the framing of the debate which is going on at the moment, because it's that whole, we need to reduce people, or we need to incentivize people to get back into work. So we're going to use the stick. We're not going to use the carrot. We're going to use the stick, and we're going to take stuff away, and that will push people, and it will suddenly wonderfully change this mindset of those individuals out of work, and they'll just immediately go and find these jobs. But what nobody is talking about is it's that bit, which is and what about that company? What about that employer or the recruitment agency or whatever that may be? What are you going to do to them and to support them so that they're more inclined to take people on and look past the disability?
They need the incentive.
Yeah. Yeah. No, They really do. And I looked at, there was the one of the one of the statistics was around um, the number of employers that don't actually have that accessible recruitment process. I mean, almost half of employers that were interviewed have inaccessible recruitment processes. So what, how are you even going to be able to get your foot in the door
How are you
if you
going to
can't even
start?
fill in the form?
Exactly. You can't, you can't start. You can't even declare whether you have a disability or not because nobody's offering you the opportunity to do that. Yeah, it's definitely an area, and with that whole like £1 billion that's going to be there to help get people back in, I really hope, because it hasn't been laid out exactly what's going to happen with it.
Hmm.
I really hope that it will be a huge push in for the employers
Yeah.
and reform in their education and
Yeah.
holding them accountable.
I think so. I mean, you've got the Equality Act, and the whole point of the Equality Act is that people
Yeah.
shouldn't be looking at, they shouldn't be using disability as an excuse for not bringing somebody in. Again, if they've got the skills and the experience and the knowledge in order to do a job.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's certain things that you're not going to be able to do. I mean, I'm never going to be doing open heart surgery, and I don't think anyone would want me to do that. And
No.
yeah, and that's fine, and I totally understand that. But there are many, many, many other roles that
Yeah.
that can be done, whether you can see or not.
Completely. And very often, if somebody has those skills already that are very easily transferable, they have a better chance
Hmm.
of getting a job if they have skills, if they have all the computer skills, if they have a background already where they just need adjustments. But I'd say one of the biggest problems is for people that aren't skilled, that would normally maybe go and get a cleaner's job or go into retail.
Yeah.
Those jobs, nobody has the patience or the time to allow somebody with a visual impairment to go and do them. That's often where it lacks. Those people that are just trying to get into the job market.
Right.
So trying to upskill somebody and trying to get them into a career.
Yeah.
And then they're afraid they put all of this time and effort into them, still nobody's going to give them a chance. So if you go round and round in circles, you just need somebody very often to give somebody a chance to get in and then to show what they can do.
Yeah. And of course, the job market is so competitive now, isn't it?
It's very competitive.
And you have to be. I think I read a report not so long ago that for every application, you have to do hundreds of applications
Yeah.
before you'll even get one callback, even let alone an interview.
Yeah.
And so it's that resilience, isn't it, to be able to keep going and keep pushing and accept the pushbacks and can complete fighting with it. And
Yeah.
yeah.
And it's very difficult whenever you're getting pushed back like that to not blame it completely on your visual impairment. Very often it is. We've talked about the attitudes of employers, but to know that actually everybody going for jobs are getting hit like that.
Yeah.
I was talking to a lady at the local university in the recruitment, and she says for one job they may get like 300 applications.
Wow.
And if you're already lacking in confidence around your own disability, you're going to think, no chance. I have no chance. So you're giving up before you're even trying. It's an insane amount of resilience that anyone needs, and people that get there, they're amazing. They're absolutely amazing. But we're also always here for anyone just to help them to keep going, to help them to keep trying. Let them know it's okay to actually stop for a second, regroup.
Yeah.
And then take another step forward.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that I did quite like, and I know we've talked about it, is it's his whole right to try that they're bringing in, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes. my favorite thing, one of the things that I'd find repeatedly was, once again, we talk about people upskilling with their education, doing all of the work, but then they get to that point of applying for a job, and they've worked so hard in trying to get their benefits in place, and it's been a fight and it's been a struggle, and they're suddenly realizing that actually, if I try this job and it doesn't work and I can't do it and I fall flat on my face, I'm back to square one. I have to start all those benefits. Times are hard as it is.
Yeah.
Nobody's on those benefits and thriving. You're still barely making ends meet. But the idea then to go back and start all over again and fight for those benefits and get them in place, it's a massive risk.
Yeah.
But one of the new incentives that they're bringing in is that right to try, which means that if it doesn't work out, you don't have to go for a reassessment. Your previous benefits will be just put back in place, which gives it a huge safety net.
It does. Yeah. And as you say, it then helps to, it's that one extra thing to just have that confidence to go, yeah, I can give this a go. I've done all that training. I've done all that work. I've got myself to this place where I really want to be.
Yeah.
And, there's this job which I'm loving the look of, and everything's in place. And then, but there's always that what if, there's always that worry. And, if there is that safety net where you can go, actually, I can give this a go and I can try it.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't work out, then at least you've got that safety net. At least you've got that there as well, which is great.
And I think a lot of companies, a lot of people, that was their experience, was that people were afraid. Why would they risk what they have, what little they have, to end up with maybe nothing if it doesn't work out. And then if you have a family to support, if you have, it's understandable. So I'm really, really glad that is something that they're going to move forward with. I mean, it was the most common sense, like, oh, wow, somebody actually listened to an issue that is, and thought, yes, we'll put this forward.
Yeah. No, agreed. And of course, that's the other thing about that whole application process as well, isn't it? We touched on access to work, and for me, that's something which I am in receipt of the access to work support, which is a government grant. I'm sure you can explain better about what it is than I can, but it gives the companies the ability to put things in place, which are expensive as well, but they can use, and the government can support with that. I think the only challenge with that, especially when you're coming into new, is some of these lead times, the backlog that there is within the system, in order to get people going, and which can obviously, that's another area of concern and worry for you or for somebody as they're going in and trying to start a new role.
And they've been given a date they to start this role, but the access to work isn't in place yet. It's something that access to work, when it works, it's absolutely brilliant. But when it doesn't work, it's another layer of stress. It's something that the employers need to know as well, and to have that balance and support the employees with what they need as much as possible. Having that allowance that, okay, this isn't set in yet, we can change your date to start, or just working with each other, and hopefully the access to work, hopefully the money will go to the right place and the access to work and get it up and running well, and not be a fight, because people do not need another fight.
No, I mean, what I must admit, what I have found when I've been gone through, so I've gone through the process twice now.
Yeah.
It's always been really positive. There has been delays, but it
Okay.
has been really positive.
Yeah.
And when I've been speaking with the assessors, they've all they've been very knowledgeable about the type of equipment and the type of support that is available, and really worked with me. So I've had I'm sat in my home office, and here I've got two large screens on my desk, so that's brilliant. And then I've got the sort of like the assistive technology. But what I found as well, and this was a really useful thing that the assessor said when he made it, was we're going to give you this assistive technology. It's something called
Hmm.
it's Freedom Scientific Fusion, and it combines two products, which is Zoom Text and JAWS. So it's like magnification and screen reading.
Yeah.
But he said, as well as that, I'm going to give you 2 days of training. And
Absolutely.
me being quite computer literate, I'm like, I don't need training. This is fine. I don't need to learn how to use it. I can do it myself. But that training was so important because it completely changes the way you interact with the technology, doesn't it? It's such a different
Completely.
way of working.
And otherwise, you have a very, very expensive piece of technology and you're using 5% of it,
Yeah.
because you don't understand what it can do.
Yeah.
And that is, I think I spoke to you very early on in my job. Now, that was one of the things that I immediately started telling people.
Mm.
I was talking to a lovely girl, and her company being so supportive. Whenever she was off, went and bought this technology and had it ready for her
Yeah.
without access to work. So that was
That's
just a
amazing.
really lovely attitude to
Yeah.
actually come across. Um, but then nobody knew how to use it. Nobody in the office knew how to use it. She didn't know how to use it. So we were trying to get the training in place for her, but advised her to go through access to work for the training at least.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it is. It's and again, the trainers, they just it's not just as well about how using how to use, whether it's Fusion or the Dolphin Supernova or whatever the technology is, but it's not just about that, but it's actually how to use your computer as well, because as my site has changed, I've got to the point where I don't use a mouse anymore. Because my magnification level is so high, um, a mouse is it's more of a hindrance than it is a help. So I use keyboard shortcuts for absolutely everything. And that was part of the training as well, was actually learning what some of this stuff built into Windows is that you can just use in order to navigate around your screen without having to use a mouse. And so it's those sort of two parts of it. And that's the other bit, which is really invaluable about the training. And as you say, with access to work, being able to cover that cost, and those assessors making those recommendations to support that, it just has that it helps the company as well, because it means that you're not just going out and having to fork out for expensive laptops, because it does need a bigger processor, it does need more memory than a standard laptop. So doing all of that and doing that investment, and then being able to get the best out of it and the best out of that person coming in as well, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And you're
Yeah,
going in with all of your expertise and being able to show exactly what you can do. Do
exactly.
your job well.
Yeah, indeed, indeed. Well, hopefully, yeah, exactly. That's right. But it's not just, but sort of coming talking about access to work as well. I mean, you've got the technology side of things, but I think what people don't realize is the other support that they provide as well, do they?
No, there is a lot of other support that can be provided. The transport within your job, very often this is like a driver that would be, um, if you go out in your job to individual places, like we have site law support worker that does that. And there's a driver that brings her to those appointments. Um, and a support worker that would help with maybe some admin stuff that isn't quite accessible.
Mm.
Um, and the access to work covers these kinds of things as well as any equipment.
But no, it is. It's a great support, and it is a great piece there, because when you're looking at again, going back to sort of the number of employers as part of that all parliamentary group when they were assessed, and they
Yeah,
just went, a quarter of the ones that were taught that were interviewed, they said that they wouldn't make any adjustments, and I think it was about 20% said it's just going to cost too much money. And so you go, well,
massive. Yeah,
it's absolutely massive, but they don't know that these schemes are available to help them, do they? And if they did, then hopefully that will change their perception a bit.
And that the normal, like in office, reasonable adjustments probably wouldn't cost you anything at all.
No.
It's just being more aware of your space and making it a bit more user friendly. It's
Mm.
not, you're not restructuring the whole building. I think it's that kind of that idea they don't know. It's ignorance. On it, misinformation would be a
Mm.
better word. That they assume, like a lot of people that assume that somebody's visually impaired just can't see anything at all.
Yeah.
So how could you possibly do this? How could you possibly come in and navigate this office or this building?
Mm.
Um, yeah, it's, I think, breaking down those walls of seeing somebody like yourself living and working, and that it's done and it can be done, and in a huge range of jobs. I
Yeah.
keep saying office, but not necessarily.
Yeah.
People work in all sorts of areas.
Well, as you say, you've got one of your site loss support officers there. They've got a visual impairment as well, and they're going out and meeting people and supporting people. And yes, changes need to be made in order to be able to do that, but there are, there's nothing to stop them from going out and providing and actually having that, to coin the term, the favorite term, lived experience. But by having that lived experience, actually the support that they can give when going and doing that outreach is even
Yeah.
better. There's a friend of mine who is he lives up north, and he's a eye clinic liaison, so he's an ECLO.
Mm.
And I mean, it's perfect. The first time when people go in and they've got this diagnosis, they've been told that they're going to potentially, lose their sight or lose a level of their sight to really impact on their lives. What better way than to be sat there with a guy with his gorgeous little black Labrador guide dog next to him? I mean, there's no, and just to know you've got the experience and to have that person there who can
Yeah.
be there and speak from their own self and say it will be okay.
It's a different level of understanding.
It is.
It is, and I think, like you said, it's quite comforting for the person that they're dealing with.
Yeah. No, agreed. Completely, totally agree. Totally agree. So, as part of what is an employability officer? What is it you do as part of sort of the role to support with the members?
So the main idea is working with, well, not idea, it's what I do. Work with people, usually individually, to get to see what areas they could work on to make them more employable. Like that, it could be, especially individually with the visual impairment, it could be that they're not confident in going out, and actually they need to be signposted sensory needs, and they need to work on maybe some cane training. Could be something like that that's visually impaired related.
Yeah.
Or it could be, do you know what, they left school, they had no qualifications, and actually they've had this very small world for 10, 20, 30 years, and they want to step back out into it. So
Mm.
they could go back and maybe get their basic, their maths, their English, do some IT. It could be that actually they just want to try something. So then we would look down the volunteer route. I also then more collectively in workshops would work on disclosing your disability. People don't know the legal rights around that at all.
Mm.
And maybe doing some confidence building workshops. We have one coming up in June. And I've started more recently. I would like our members to support each other and to get to know each other and have normal conversations
Yeah.
around the struggles that they're having or things that they've done that they find that has worked. So we're trying more employability in support group meetings. The last one we had was lovely. We had site loss support officer that I just mentioned. She came along and talked about her lived experience, which was good, and how she uses access to work. And we had somebody from the university talk about recruitment processes and how, kind of from the other side of it, how they look at disabilities or how they don't look at it, somebody else is, and then all how it works. But also she was fantastic. She gave some brilliant hints in CVs and, you know, some things that they would look out for more than others. And yeah, so that was that one, and it was successful. There was some lovely, lovely feedback on it. And then the next one we have coming up, Thomas Pocklington Trust is joining us.
Okay.
Which would be fantastic.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, that's brilliant. So what are the you mentioned about Thomas Pocklington Trust, and they're starting to do like some more training as well, aren't they? And sort of some more specific targeted courses, aren't they?
I mean, they're brilliant anyway, but they're nationwide, so it's great to work with them and then kind of take some of their ideas and implement them and use them. And we're lucky as well because they're based in London. It's not that far away. But they have developed working well with sight loss. The living well with sight loss has been around for a long time as a course. So this is a working well with sight loss, and that will, I think they're just doing this week possibly their first as a residential in London.
Okay.
And then that will go around the same things that I would do on a smaller basis, like the CVs and also the tech that's available, and confidence and resilience is a massive thing. And I can't remember the other things that's in that, but it's going around all of those over 2 days.
Sure.
In the same way that the Living Well with Sight Loss will go over all of the topics over 2 days.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that will become more implemented more across the country, and especially in Berkshire.
Yeah.
It would be fantastic to have it structured that way. The thing, but I suppose the same way with Living Well with Sight Loss, not everybody that goes to it needs information on all of the things. But what is a massive benefit is people being together and having, that you've experienced that as well. Oh, thank you. I'm not alone. I'm not going through this by myself. So I think that would be brilliant once it's up and running well. I think they're just trying it now, and then I think they're planning on doing another one later in the year. But hopefully then we can be involved.
And that's good because it combines that that knowledge and that training with, again, that feeling of actually you're not alone. You're in a group with people in similar circumstances to you, and so then you can feed off each other and work together, and learn from each other's experiences as well, whilst also learning from the experts at TPT about how to sort of develop in order to be able to get yourself to that top of that pile, so that that the recruiters can see you. You mentioned, actually, it was an interesting one you touched on about disclosure of disability, which is quite an interesting piece, isn't it? Because
it's a really interesting one. Yeah. I've talked to a couple of members, at least, that have thought that they actually legally have to, from the very first, they have to disclose they're visually impaired. And I mean, including it in the cover letter and stuff, and trying to inform them. And that's what it is. It's information. People can do what they want with their own information. It's but that you don't have to legally, at any point, declare that you're visually impaired. It can be very beneficial at different points. And I've had people that have got into employment that have found it beneficial at different. So you can, if you can do it from the very start and feel confident in the actual application side of it, that as in then that you need some some changes to the application process that,
Yeah.
or when you're in the room, it basically kind of letting it know from the get-go what you need, what your accessibility needs are. And it can benefit you, because then if you have the right employer, they'll be like, absolutely, I can give you this and let's go ahead. And they know that you're confident, you own it.
Mm-hmm.
But very often people feel that the employers, I mean, a lot of people have felt this from experience, that they'll find out that they're visually impaired from the start, and that's given them a disadvantage, so that they don't bother doing it in that first place. Some people I know have waited until they've even got through the interview processes. So maybe on their second or third interview, once they're offered a job, then they disclose it. This, of course, would depend on how obvious, if it's like this, if it's a Zoom interview, you may not realize anyway, but obviously if you're walking into a building with a white cane, they're going to know.
Yeah.
But that particular man find it most useful to wait until he was offered the job, and then he disclosed his visual impairment, but felt that at this point they've already seen what he can do. So you can decide not to disclose it at all, but then you don't have any of your rights, your equality rights. They go out the window. If your employer didn't know about it, it's null and void.
Yeah. And it's hard, isn't it? Because as you say, in a way, if you disclose it from the get-go, and your employer and you're the company that you're going to see, and they go, yeah, that's nothing, that's fine, we can just incorporate it, we can do it, then you're like, this is the company I want to work for, this is really positive, and that's great. And and on the flip side of that, if you declare it and then they become really quite cold, and then you're like, well, I don't think I want to work for you anyway. If that's the way you're going to be, then that's not really for me. But it is so hard to know when is the right time, and it's such a personal thing as well. And you've got to have that confidence in everything about when is the right time to do that, don't you? And just but to know that actually you don't have to. You have no legal obligation to declare it. Obviously, there are benefits to declaring it, but there's no obligation to do so. That just that gives that level of support as well, and that another level of comfort there, doesn't it?
It's kind of empowering that it's yours, that you don't have to do anything, that it is yours to own, so that it's not all you are.
Yeah.
So you can tell people when and if you want to. Obviously, if you're going for a job like that at Berkshire Vision and it was going to benefit you in huge amounts that you were visually impaired, I'd say go for it.
I was going to say, you're going to be shouting it from the rooftops, aren't you? You really.
So that's it as well, though. Look at the job that you're applying for.
Yeah.
But that's important anyway. Whatever if you're adding something on your cover letter, you want to aim it towards the job that you're applying for, not just as a standard.
Yeah, no, definitely. And at the same time, as working, with the members as well, you also provide support to organisations, local organisations, don't you, and helping them with the minefield.
Yeah, so we're always there to offer any information for access to work, or the different technologies, or we also have guided training that we do, which can be for anyone. But I think if one of our members was going for a job and that company then reached out and wanted to know information, I mean, that's fantastic. That's a company that you want to work for. The company that's trying to go an extra mile just to make sure that they're doing everything that they can do. But companies often don't know that information is there. So another thing that I'm trying to do is to get out to companies to to go over all of that information in a presentation kind of style.
Of course.
Things that are available through Access to Work, the things that we can offer to help with the abilities of somebody with a visual impairment, not, is not defined by their visual impairment. It's defined by their experience, and just to try to quash those myths that people have, those assumptions. And very often it's just that they don't know. And I think information is one of the most powerful things. I think information is the most powerful thing for my members.
Yeah.
And equally for the businesses that employ the general public. The more they know, if they don't have anyone that has a visual impairment in their office or in their company, and then we go speak to them and let them know this with no pressure. This isn't you must hire somebody, but then somebody comes through their process wanting a job, and they were like, actually, I remember somebody from Berkshire Vision came and said this. We can do that. That's fine,
It's you say it's getting out there and having that knowledge and just sowing that nugget into the back of somebody's mind that goes, actually, if somebody does come through the door and they meet, that there's somebody who, that meets the criteria and all of that, and there is supports and there's mechanisms and there's there's processes in place to support that, and I think the more that people are aware that these things are there, and the more that they're aware that the support is there, the more confident that organisations will be in bringing those people in. I mean, there's things like there are the schemes like Disability Confident, aren't there, which is a really good one to help to show, that they have got accessible recruitment processes and are accessible in other ways as well. And I know RNAB do a specific one for sight loss, don't they? A specific standard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do. And actually on their website as well, they also have a little course for employers. So there's information out there, both locally and nationally. But as I said, actually getting people to know that information is there. You're not going to wake up one morning and go, I'm just going to have a little nosy at RNIB or Berkshire Vision's website. It wouldn't come naturally. So it's just trying to get that awareness out there to the companies. And hopefully with the employment kind of reform, as they're calling it, through the government, that will be a focus of theirs.
Exactly. And I think the more awareness that there is, and the more that's kind of, it goes back to that point again, doesn't it? Which is they're going to make these cuts to universal credit to incentivize people to get back into work, whether that's the right thing to do or not. It can't be the only avenue to take. If there is this real drive to get people into work and get people back into employment and so on and so forth, then fine. But then you need to be thinking about everything, and you need to be thinking about the incentives that need to be done, and whether that's financial incentives to organizations or just making them aware that there is support available and what is available, in order that they don't need to be, that they can confidently, I'm trying to think of a way to say it, but that it's not, it's about having them being able to know that there are processes and things in place where if they do have somebody that comes in through the door who is disabled or who has a level of sight loss, that there are things in place which means that they won't just be discounted because they can't see.
Yeah. And not just things like Access to Work, which is brilliant because taking that financial responsibility off is fantastic, but actual support, actual advice to the companies on on different legislations. I would like to think most companies would have somebody within, but I suppose depending on the size of it, their expertise on a deep depth of legislation and rights would one maybe be there. So having all of that information on hand, someone to support that kind of upper level government HR essentially. um, yeah, but just making it that it is easy, and it would be good that the employers embraced it rather than took it like it's something else that they have to do.
Yeah.
That it would be something they want to do, because nobody wants to be going into a job feeling that I'm only here because somebody told them they have to take me. You
Yeah.
know, it should be embraced across the board.
I think so. And actually, it's starting to get people to realize that it's not just about ticking that box. It's not just
Yeah,
because the Equality Act says that you have to.
exactly.
It's that actually that person brings some real benefit or can bring some real benefit to the company, to the organization. But likewise, by making these changes and by making themselves more accessible, it actually helps others as well. It doesn't just help that specific demographic or for that specific group of people, but it has a wider benefit. By making your website more accessible,
Yeah,
that's not just making things better for that person who uses a screen reader. It's actually making it clearer and easier for anybody coming in to apply for a role. And so there are these additional benefits as well, aren't there?
oh, completely. And no company should want carbon copy staff. You know, nobody should want staff that are just reprints of each other. You know, you want a huge range of people to bring in all of that different knowledge and those different backgrounds. You want it to be an inclusive,
Yeah,
um, and it's the best way to move forward.
it is. Yeah. No, that's fantastic. It really is. And by having these supports and by having at both that national and at local level to be able to work with companies, members, families, whatever that may be, in order to raise that awareness, in order to help to break down the barriers, and also to then to give those people like me, when we are going out and looking for a new job,
Yeah,
actually to know that we're not the only ones. We're not stuck on our own. There is support. There is help there, and you know, and there are other people in the same boat that we're in. It's just all of that helps to just build that confidence again. And again, we've mentioned resilience quite a few times, haven't we?
yeah,
But it really helps to build that as well, doesn't it?
yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Brilliant. Well, I think it's been fascinating chatting with you, Jenna, and it's been really, really good. And you know, thank you so much for your time. Um,
Thank you, Chris.
it's yeah, and I think that's probably the um yeah, it's just been fascinating talking to you, and thank you so much for your time.
No, thank you, Chris.
Gold is worthless, I take it for free. For free. For free.
Thank you for listening. This has been Blind Man with a Backpack in conversation with Jenna Lynch. If you would like to find out more about all the services, support and activities Berkshire Vision provides, including employability, then please visit their website berkshirevision.org.uk. If you are interested in discovering more about the Working Well with Sight Loss course discussed, then you can visit pocklington.org.uk and search in their events section. And if you're keen in finding out about RNIB's Visibly Better Employer Standard, then visit rnib.org.uk and take a look at their employment and equality section. Until next time, goodbye.